Welcome to Ion AA, a platform with the sole purpose of sharing information on alcoholism and recovery. If you're not familiar with AA traditions of personal anonymity, the policy is based on attraction, not promotion. That is why AA speakers and AA members are not photographed, videotaped, or identified by full name. The AA tradition of anonymity reminds us that AA principles come before personalities. All right. Welcome to Ion AA. For those of you who have not been here before, this is a new program produced by Into Action, a registered home group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Just to be clear, the show does not represent Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole and is completely autonomous under the direction of the Into Action Public Information Committee, which is dedicated to educating the general public on alcoholism. The opinions expressed on this show are solely based on each person's individual experiences. Right now, we have some wonderful folks with us here in the studio from the Into Action Home Group. And what we're going to do is kind of talk about alcoholism, sobriety, and recovery, and each person can kind of give their take on it. You can call in or text some questions to 804-250-5944. That number will be popping up and off the screen here, 804-250-5944. Also, the Into Action Home Group meets every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m., 5400 Forest Hill Avenue. They've also got a website, aaintoactiongroup.com, which is where you might have seen this live stream advertised. They also have a phone number that you can call, 804-651-3499. If you need to reach out for help, if you think you might have a problem with alcoholism, you can call them directly, 804-651-3499. All right, now we are here in the show with three panelists, and we're just going to throw around questions unless somebody wants to text or call us with some questions. I guess we could start off, say, with number one here on the panel, and maybe, from your own personal experience, could just sort of outline, now that you've kind of gone through the program, outline, what alcoholism was in your life. A lot of people don't necessarily realize they have an alcohol problem until something major happens in their life. So maybe you just kind of want to highlight, what that was like for you.
Sure, thanks. Alcoholism in my life looked like, for me, I guess I knew for many years towards the end that I was drinking in a way that wasn't healthy, that it wasn't how I saw other people using alcohol, but I did not connect that with it being alcoholism, like that being the illness at the root of it. I thought it was other outside problems, like my job or my family or my new town, or, I could always point a finger at something else. If this one thing had just gone a certain way, then I wouldn't feel this need to let the pressure off by drinking. And then really for me, it was for COVID to hit, all those fabricated ideas fell away. I didn't have work to complain about. I didn't have any of the usual quote triggers that I would have been blaming before to drink, and I still had the desire. And ultimately what really identified that it was more than just I needed to relieve stress was that the only way in the end for me to stop thinking about when I was going to get to drink, maybe I'd make up rules for myself, I'd have to do some chores before I could do it, or I'd have to take care of the yard or go to the store or pick up some food, or I just made up all these rules, I'm not allowed to do that yet until after this meeting or that meeting. And it was the only way to stop thinking about when I was going to get to drink again, was to start drinking. And it wasn't until I said that to somebody who is normal and not an alcoholic that was when the red flag went up that is not a healthy person. That's a person who's sick. That only way to stop drinking is to start drinking, or to stop thinking about drinking is to start drinking. And I know that now is that mental obsession that we have in alcoholism, that it's not just the drinking that, for me anyway, that was problematic. It was the mental obsession of like needing to drink, wanting to drink the way I wanted to drink, which was easy for me to do. By this time, I'd completely isolated myself away from anyone who could know any way how I was living in any way. I could put on airs for people that made it look like I was normal, and I could still check in with, you know, the parents or loved ones from afar, because I had removed myself from anybody. So isolation, obsession with drinking, depression, those were the huge, that's mainly how alcoholism looked in my life. It was just, yes, self-pity and isolation were the biggest components for me. And like I said, that obsession to just want to drink at any time I could. But even with that, it still took months for me to realize that's what was happening in the pandemic. And then months after that to figure out that you really had to surrender to this label that I really, really did not like at first. I thought I could still find another way out that didn't require stopping for the rest of your life and like doing any work on yourself, or like, I wanted it to kind of be like a diet choice, the way that like people stop eating cheese or milk or you know, meat, or, you know, I wanted it to kind of be in that vein. But it's not for me. It doesn't look like that.
Gotcha. Thanks for sharing that. So number two, like she kind of touched on, you know, how alcoholism was in her life. Did you ever think you were an alcoholic, like during your experiences? I think a lot of people think that, you know, an alcoholic is, you know, there is a label that comes with that, but I think that label sort of entails like people thinking that you're a homeless person. And I think what this program what we're trying to get across here is that's not necessarily the case. It can affect anybody. You know, I mean, were you able to sort of maintain your life in a way, or were you able to manage it, or did it eventually just become unmanageable?
For me, alcoholism just actually became a part it was connected to every part of my life. Like you said, I didn't have the stigma of losing my home. I was able to somehow struggle and pay my mortgage and keep my cars and everything. But for me, I just had to have it. I became obsessed with having it everywhere I went. I couldn't go to a movie. I couldn't go to eat. It was just involved, and it had taken over a part of every part of my life. Going to my kids' functions, you know, I had to have something to drink. And I had been through treatment a few times, and I knew, and for me, my illness had convinced me that once I accepted that I was an alcoholic, the fun stopped. Because I had some fun times drinking, I really did. You know, I mean, in spite of the terror and everything, I had some fun times drinking. So I stayed in denial. You know, I just wanted to keep having fun, and so I didn't want to take that name of alcoholic on me. But eventually, it started affecting my health, and I started to notice when I looked in the mirror how small I was getting, and how I stopped having fun with alcohol. It became a part of just, along with everything else, I needed to go to sleep, actually, and that set off an alarm in my mind. You know, like every night around 9 o'clock, 8:45, 8:30, I knew that in order for me to sleep that night, I had to have a certain amount of alcohol in my system. So there was that mad dash to meet that obsession. You know, I knew I had to have it, or I just was gonna have a terrible night. So it kind of encompassed my whole life at the end, and I had to submit to the understanding that I was an alcoholic, and I had a malady with alcohol. It just couldn't go in my mouth, you know. and so once I realized that and submitted to that understanding, then I was able to get help, and my life has gotten a lot better as a result of that.
Did you find that even though, like you would say, drink to fall asleep, that even at some point stopped working?
No, I always passed out, so that always worked. The main terror was not having enough to even start that process of going to sleep. you know. But I always passed out. Like I said, I didn't lose my home and everything, so I could always have enough money to purchase the required amount to go to sleep that night. So I always had that on hand, and so I always drank till I was able to pass out. And the sleep was not even sleep; it was just relief, right? Because I never woke up rested like like I do now. But I just, my hands would shake and I would sweat, and sleep was just not a part of my life unless I had my go-to. And like I said, once I got past the denial and faced the fact that where I was at and where alcohol had took me, then I was able to get help, and my life has changed dramatically.
Awesome, thanks. So number 3, how about in your life? Where did you find alcohol taking control of your life?
It took control of pretty much all of my life. The only time that I didn't drink was at work. But as soon as I finished work, I immediately wanted to drink. But I was thinking about the other day, the drives to work that I used to have. I guess I was thinking about it on the way to work one day this week or whatever, and how I would leave my house in the morning, and I would always be so frantic because I was always running late because I was always hungover. But I would get in the car and I would start driving to work, and I would start thinking about that I didn't want to drink that day. And so I would start planning how I was not going to drink that day. But I would start to get so anxious at the thought of drinking that day. And I only worked like 20 minutes from my house. But by the time I had gotten to work, I no longer was not going to drink. But I was trying to figure out ways to limit my drinking so that it wouldn't be as out of control as every other day. But I would have myself so stressed out and so wound up at the thought of not drinking that I would be so tense. And as soon as I got out of work, I would immediately have something to drink. And so it consumed me. There was a point in my life where I thought that I had it under control. I always wanted children, and when I got pregnant with my son, I didn't have a problem not drinking. And so I was just a happy pregnant person. I loved being pregnant, and I thought it was all about loving being pregnant. It wasn't until probably about 6 months into sobriety that I realized that that was the only time span in my adult life, probably since I was 18, that I was sober for any length of time. And I think that it gave me such a hope that I had fixed this problem, because I kept waiting for something in my life to happen like happened in every other. My friends were hard drinkers, but when they got married or had kids, they stopped. So I kept waiting for that event to happen in my life that was going to change me. And I really thought that having my son was going to change me, and that I wasn't going to go back to drinking the way I did, but I almost immediately did. And I think that was a really hard thing to face, because I really thought that my life was going to change. But I really didn't have a choice in the matter, because as an alcoholic, we don't have that choice.
Yeah, it sounds like from what you all are describing is that there are normal drinkers and there are not normal drinkers, and a lot of people who may think they're normal drinkers. Normal drinker. I mean, I guess number one, what would be a normal drinker compared to, say, how an alcoholic drinks? Could you kind of outline sort of like what the difference is there? I mean, it sounds like from your stories, there's sort of an obsession that most normal people don't have with alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, I just leaning on my experience, I can talk about a family member who is not an alcoholic, and funny enough, she had a milestone birthday 7 years ago, and threw herself a huge party out in Malibu, and it was super fun. And I went out. I had just quit my job and moved across the country again, and was gonna figure it out this time. It was gonna be different. And I was like, yeah, I can totally come to your birthday party because I'm unemployed and I'm back living with our parents. So this is great. I'd love to get out of here. Perfect. So we went and had a great party, and I came home, and fast forward the clock, I turned out to be an alcoholic. Unbeknownst to me, was an alcoholic that whole time. And she, was very supportive when I told her that news, and through a series of conversations made a comment about her recent move back east and how has this bottle of rum from her birthday party in Malibu that she moved all the way back across the country with her. And I was like, wait a minute. You have a bottle of alcohol that has been in your possession for 7 years, unopened. And your Midwestern sensibilities don't allow you to throw it away, so you just keep moving it with you, but not drinking it, holding on to it. So for me, that was like, I don't know if it's nature or nurture. We're siblings, and she doesn't have it, and I do.
Did you volunteer to?
Well, I was fortunately sober by the time that reality hit me. That I was like, wait a minute. So every time I have visited you, there's been a bottle of rum we could have been drinking. But the stark difference in like her ability to stay away from alcohol. It's not an obsession for her. It can be around. She doesn't think about it. If she doesn't like the taste of a thing, she puts it back. She doesn't need it. She can go and have a lot or a little or none or some or finish it, not finish it. And for me, it was just a constant calculus of like, will I have enough to get what I want from this? Will others start to recognize that I've gone back too many times for some? So maybe I'll order 2, drink 1 at the bar, but only bring 1 back to the table. Or, there's just this constant calculation of trying to hide it for me from people that I didn't even know I was doing at the time until I stopped having to do that and was like, wow, I can just enjoy people again. Like sitting around the table at the holidays, like playing games with the family. I'm like paying attention to, what we're doing. I'm not thinking, I wonder if I offered to go make him a drink, then I could make myself one, but I'd also make like extra so that I could have that. And then maybe I'll do the dishes so I can hide in the kitchen and drink while everyone else is like tending to the fireplace and they won't know. And just this constant like calculation. And so yeah, for normal people, they're not doing that. They're not doing that calculation all the time. And that was evident to me in my sister's story about just like carrying this bottle of rum around for nearly a decade because she doesn't like rum.
Why are you wasting that?
Yeah, I was like, why don't you just throw it away, I guess. But yeah, so she just doesn't have that mental quirk that we have to just, to me, that I hear in a lot of people's stories, it's just that obsession of like, when is it coming? Will it be enough? How do I keep you from taking any of mine, right? Like, I need it.
Yep.
I can remember that even way back to like 20, almost 20 years before I got sober. I can remember those thoughts of being like, will there be enough? I had a secret fridge in college that nobody knew, like a couple close people knew about, but it was like always our go-to stash,
hard to pull off in college, a secret stash.
Yeah. You always had a stash or like for late night or like there was always like a continuance plan where you're going to get more. That's been going on forever. But yeah, so for me, what it looks like in the people I know that are normal, like they don't have that. They're not worried about it. They don't plan for it. They don't even hardly look forward to it. It's not like an event every weekend. Even when I was just a binge drinker, a weekend drinker, before it turned into daily drinking, they grew up. Like that's kind of how it looked to me before I knew it was alcoholism, is I just thought it was this arrested development that I was stuck in, that I just didn't want to grow up. They had kids, they had families, they got careers, they like got a direction in their life. That with that came just a lack of desire to drink. They're just like, yeah, I grew up. I just don't really do that anymore. It's too hard to get up in the morning, or like, you had too many things to get done. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't, not calculating. It does not compute. But that's what I think normal people, to us now being sober, it seems extraordinary, but they're really just ordinary. Like they're just, to be ordinary feels so good now, to just not have that constant racket going on.
Yeah, that obsession, that daily obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience that, number 2? Did you try some what they call controlled drinking, or
I tried controlled drinking, changing different things, other substances and everything. For what I discovered so far is that non-alcoholics can navigate life through their fears, failures, successes, and alcohol is not a part of that. They don't need relief from those things through alcohol. For me, I couldn't navigate life without alcohol. you know, I just couldn't. And then the ability to stop. See, like number one said, you know, non-alcoholics can stop. It doesn't. They're not obsessed with it, right? But for me, that's the difference. And then like when I watch people on television, and they be in a business setting, and they'll pour a little small drink of something, and I'm like, what is that, right?
What's the point?
Then they put it down, and that's it for them. But for me, it wouldn't have went like that, you know. They've been like, keep the glass and give me the bottle. That's the difference. And,
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, they can navigate life, loss of family members and everything, and just for me, alcohol had to be a part of everything for me to get through almost everything in my life. And non-alcoholics just live life and they take it on life terms every day, and they're not obsessed with alcohol. You know, it's not a crutch, it's not a go-to, it's not a physical need, it's not a mental obsession, and you know, that's the difference for me.
I like that you said crutch. It reminds me of a joke I heard, and of course I won't tell the joke well because I'm terrible at jokes, but it was something Mitch Hedberg said, and he was like, you know, I think some people were at his job like saying, man, you like an alcoholic, blah blah blah, something or other, and he's like, you know, alcoholism. It was like, oh, they're saying you, because he was coming up with excuses why he couldn't do this or why he couldn't do that, and they're like, and he'd be like, well, you know, I drank a little too much last night or whatever, so. They said he was using alcohol as a crutch, and in Mitch Hedberg, I don't know if anyone's familiar, but he's like, alcoholism, it is not a crutch, it was more like a step I did not see. I just always thought that was a good way, because, you know, people say the crutch, you know, and number three, if you want to elaborate on it, but it's like, you know, I feel like growing up, you know, we did see a lot of images and movies and television, and you still see it today where, you know, people have a problem or they're stressed out about something or whatever, and the initial response is to always go take a drink, you know, and so many of the stories I've heard, it's to calm that thinking that we have. Did you kind of have that similar experience?
I did. I just remember seeing it was the solution to everything. Anything that you watched on TV, there was a solution to anything. I had a rough day at work the other day, and I've noticed since I quit drinking how much alcohol is discussed at work. And it doesn't bother me to hear it, but I don't think it's probably a healthy thing for people who may be alcoholic and might not realize it. But my boss the other day, we had a really rough day at work, and he said, go home and have a drink. And I kind of gave him a look, and he said, I mean, I guess if you do that. And I said, I don't. And so he just kind of gave me that uncomfortable look, and I just smiled and went. But it's in everything. And I had to drink no matter what my mood. I would leave work, or generally work, because that was the only time I wasn't drinking. And if it was a bad day, I would say, oh my God, that day was so bad, I need a drink. Or if it was a good day, I'd say, wow, that was a great day. I need to go celebrate. Or, oh my gosh, I am so tired. I need to go get a little drink on to get me going again. And so, no, it didn't matter what the mood was. I was going to fix whatever mood I was in with alcohol.
Yeah, I've heard that in a lot of people's stories where it's, well, weren't you just depressed all the time? Well, yeah. What did you drink for that? Well, yeah, I drank because I was depressed or angry, upset. Well, what about when you were happy? Well, I drank because I was happy too, right? It's
it just took me to that comfortable state that I knew. I didn't know how to deal with any of my emotions or any of the things that I felt. So I needed to get myself in that kind of mildly drunken state, because that's where I knew how to push everything else aside. So alcohol was my solution to everything.
Yeah. So without getting into drunkalogs, we could maybe talk a little bit about, you know, like, you know, because everyone kind of ends up at AA for different reasons, Alcoholics Anonymous for whatever reason, and, you know, luckily people can find a group and, you know, come in and find a different solution other than alcohol. So number one, you kind of want to just maybe talk about what you found when you came to AA?
Sure, yeah. Well, I guess for the newcomers, like, I would argue, for me, like, when I first showed up in AA, it was, of course, during the pandemic, and so I didn't have, like, an in-person meeting for a long time. I'm really trying to think back. So the first few months, I did it from my couch. I stopped drinking and then just attended a couple random online meetings, not even local ones, on a website. And I will say what I found there was curiosity. I was like, what are these words they're using? What are these, like, what are the steps? And what's this big book all about? And then just a genuine honesty from people is what I found in those rooms that were like just filled with just from people all over the world. There'd be like 300 people in one of these like digital meeting rooms. It wasn't even Zoom. It was like something proprietary to this website. And so at a minimum, they sparked my curiosity about like, what are these people talking about? And I think that was really just poking at this idea that like I need to know everything. I didn't know what these people were talking about, so I at least had the willingness to like stay a little bit curious about it. But it wasn't a solution yet. And then I came in, when I finally made it out of my house, I got the courage to go to an actual meeting.
It's hard to get out of the house in a pandemic, right?
It was, yeah, it was.
Especially if you're isolated.
You've been isolating for about 5 years. I literally had no friends in the city or state of Virginia, or wherever we are. It's just. I think that's obvious. That's a known element. All right, cool. So by the time I got out of the house and made it to an actual meeting, the next thing I found there was kindness, like so much love and kindness. I remember one person specifically, just like the eye contact, and they asked me if I was okay, and I could just feel that they knew what I was going through. They just knew something about me. And that's all they said. That's all. Those are literally the only words that were expressed to me. And I think I said, I'm fine, which was not true. But I was like, I'm fine. Don't look over here.
Did you find it was kind of a different sort of question asking how you are than, say, somebody at your job?
Right. Or like the counter salesperson at like a store or whatever.
Right.
It was like they knew.
Truly cared what.
And they knew that I wasn't okay. You know what I mean? They knew, they just know. We just know each other as an alcoholic to another alcoholic. We just know. And I just connected with that. Again, it took me, I went to that meeting a few times, and then I just kept coming back. And I don't know what I was getting every time other than just these little tiny bits of like, people were being nice, people were being kind, people were not shunning me, judging me, shaming me. I didn't know what I was or like what they were. I didn't know what we were doing. I had no context for what these meetings meant. I had no treatment, or I didn't have any words for what was happening around me. I didn't know the word home group. I didn't know what a sponsor was. I didn't know anything. But I just had that kindness, you know, like just strangers being like, you all right? You know? And then finally got some phone numbers and stuff like that. But then it really hit me when I got a sponsor. Like that's when it started to really open, my eyes started to open up, and I actually heard somebody's story, her story, and it was the first story I had heard of anybody in the program, because I had never been to what we call speaker meetings, so I didn't know anyone's stories that I had met previously. And when I heard hers, I was like, oh, that sounds like me. I just really could hear the details are different, the facts are different, but I could really hear myself in her telling of just her feeling, like how she felt, what she would do, how she overcame it. And she just knew me. Again, it was just this like intuitive, you know, I would call it kind of a God moment now, I guess. At the time, it was just like this divine intervention that was like, these people know me in a way that I'd never been seen before. So I don't know, that was kind of a long way around of what I got. It wasn't, I know I hear a lot of people say they come in and they're like, I found my people. I did not feel that. I was like, I don't know these people.
Still yet skeptical, right?
I was super skeptical. It took me like, seriously, like 8 or 9 months before I was like, all right, I'm one of them for sure. Like, stop pretending you're not. It was a long road to like fully surrender, but it's only in hindsight, looking back now, that these little gems that I do think I was subconsciously almost holding on to, is these like little moments of just like clarity that kept me coming back into the rooms and like being willing to stay for some hopeful serenity that like I wasn't having just not drinking. I didn't drink for 4 months without any solution, and I still was crazier than I was when I wasn't than I was drinking. I was more insane after 4 months of just not drinking
Right.
with no solution amidst a pandemic.
Well, it sounds like you found some people that you could sort of identify with. Obviously, they identified with you, and you saw something there that they had that you wanted, right?
At a minimum, I mean, one, like you said, they weren't your movie scene alcoholic. They weren't your, like, drunk under the bridge, homeless. I mean, they had times in their life where things were bad, but, like, now she was great. She was healthy. She had good relationships and was, you know, educated and successful. And
Seemed like a normal person,
had some
right?
markings of things that I thought if I could get there, like number 3 said, if you have a kid, maybe that would fix it. For me, it was like, if I get this job, if buy a house, get another degree, move again. You know, I just kept thinking, and you really believe it when you're in the middle of your illness like that. Like, if you just change something,
Yeah. If
something
I
would
could only have
change.
this, or if this would go that way, then everything would be fine.
Yeah, and then I really learned the hard way that, like, no matter where you go, there you are. So if you're not looking at yourself and
I
your
believe somebody said that earlier tonight when they arrived.
oh yeah yeah but yeah, so yeah, I certainly saw that in the people I met early on, was that they were living normal lives and totally understood me, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. What you see on TV, like, is normally somebody chasing you down, going, you know, or running to a meeting because they just had a thought about,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
having something to drink.
That comes up a
Or-
lot with normal people too. They'll be like, do you need a meeting? I'm like,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Or the sponsor like coming down heavy-handed. I feel like that's, you know, like almost like a lot of the sponsors in the television series or whatever, or like your parent.
Yeah.
Like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't, you know, I mean, did you experience that, number 2, like coming into AA? Were you able to identify with people?
Definitely,
I mean,
definitely.
and you said you had gone to treatment too, so
Right.
you know.
But even those times when I tried treatment, I really wasn't finished drinking. I had some more experimenting to do. I'm gonna be honest about it. But I didn't really give AA a chance. This time around, I was so terrified of where I had been, and not wanting to go back. When they suggested to go to AA, I said, that's all I needed to hear. So I went to AA, but I didn't know what was supposed to happen. I sat at meetings for a long time, and nothing changed, you know. But still, I was terrified of drinking again, because I remember where I had been. I kept my story in front of me, and so I just sat in a lot of different meetings, and nothing changed for me, and that was getting kind of disheartening and frustrating. And eventually, what they tell me, if I were to continue just sitting in meetings, then I would have been doomed to drink again. But I found a home group that kind of opened up some doors, and there was a God moment that I had upon finding this home group, and it's a real home group, and I really connected and plugged in, and it's not just sitting in meetings anymore. You know, it's a substance, it's service. You know, it's a happy, joyous, and free new lifestyle for me. And I wasn't aware of any of that. I was still going to strip clubs when I was just sitting in meetings, right? Because I didn't know you had to change behavior. You know, I mean, I didn't know any of that. You know, I didn't know that. So I got to a home group with some people whose lives was working, and I let all my last little barriers down. And I stopped hanging around, leaving right after the meeting. You know, and try to connect with people, and no, all of us are, to a degree, spiritually still healing and spiritually sick. I know I am, and you know, so things happen and everything. It's not perfect, but wow, it's so much better being involved with a home group and being available for service than just sitting in meetings. That didn't do much for me.
Or just not drinking.
Or just not drinking.
Just
I
being
suppose.
dry. Yeah.
That
being
just
dry.
hurts.
Yeah, that's horrible. That's horrible. I mean, it's horrible drinking, but not drinking is horrible
It's
too.
insanity.
You know, it is, and I couldn't have continued that much longer with that.
Yeah. So number 3, speaking of not drinking, so I mean, you know, a lot of people will just sit in meetings. What did you find about say, this particular home group, and what sort of led you down the road to finding a better way of living, you know, other than just not drinking? Because I think that's what a lot of people think Alcoholics Anonymous is only a measure to prevent you from not drinking. But I think there's a lot more to it than just not drinking.
Yeah. So I guess the really cool thing about AA is that we come from so many walks of life, and if you are actually listening, you will hear your story, like number one said, in someone. And I'm kind of different than she is, because I came in the meeting, my first meeting, I knew I was in the right place. I hit bottom very, very hard, and I was terrified, and I had absolutely nowhere to go. I was so afraid. And a friend of mine took me to an AA meeting and dropped me off and picked me up. And I cried through the entire thing. Tears just rolled down my face. And after the meeting, women surrounded me, and they told me a little bit. I told them what I had done. I told them about my bottom, which I couldn't believe because I was never honest about anything. But they told me a little bit about their story, and I remember just looking at them going, well, these are perfectly normal people. And so it gave me a sense of hope. I said, if they did, because some of them had done the same thing that I had done. And so if they had done that and they were normal people now, maybe there was some hope and a future for me. And so I found my way into action, and I immediately I felt safe. I had lost I could still go to work, and from the outside I looked like a functional person, but I didn't know how to interact socially with anyone. And so I hung out in that basement, and I listened to everything that everybody said. I did everything that everybody said to do. And I learned how to be a person again. I learned how to interact with
How to be a human being.
Yeah. I learned how to interact with other people. And eventually I was ready to it sounds really cheesy, but I was ready to leave the basement and go interact with regular people in the world. But I hid there and really learned social, because I didn't know how to talk to anybody without being drunk. I needed some of that liquid courage in order to have a conversation. I didn't feel like anybody would want to talk to me. I had no self-esteem. I don't know. I felt that I was in the right place, and I had no other place to go when I came into AA. So I stayed, and I just followed directions, really. And I had never been one to follow directions, because I always knew a better way, and I could always change I always changed the directions. I never did anything the way it was said. This is the only thing that I've ever done the way that I was told to do it. And it worked, so.
Yeah, I think you hit on some. There was a lot of good stuff in there, and you were saying that being told what to do and never listening to anyone. Everyone was kind of, you can't see the faces here on here, but everybody's kind of nodding their head. So obviously that is a theme with alcoholism, that most people don't want to listen. And I feel like the challenge is, for a lot of folks that have this issue is, being able to give up and surrender to this process. Most people don't want to do what someone else is telling them to do.
I don't think I answered my question, though, did I? I was supposed to say about just not drinking, wasn't I?
Oh, yeah. No, that was
fine. Can I answer the question?
Yeah, go back to it.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to hear.
So a lot of people think that if we just stop drinking, our life is going to be better. But our life is actually going to be worse, because we hide everything and we bury everything with alcohol. That's the only way we know how to deal with the things that are in our lives that are so overwhelming, and we're so full of fear of everything, and that's how we deal with the fear, the social anxiety, the whatever. Alcohol is our solution, and if you take away that solution, then we're just left with the pile of shit that we started with, and we have nothing to do with it. And so if you're going to quit drinking, you need to find some other solution. And for me, that solution was doing the 12 steps, finding a home group, getting involved, finding a higher power. And that was my solution. So now I don't need to drink anymore. But if I had just stopped drinking and was left with that just mess, it would have been awful, and it wouldn't have lasted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that, this program sort of gives you the tools, well, we haven't really gotten into like what is a sponsor, what is a home group. We just kind of been talking a little bit about this and that, but gives you the tools in order to meet the things on a daily basis that most people deal with in a regular manner, whereas folks who have alcoholism often will have a problem, not deal with it, and then the solution to that is drinking, and I think what this program kind of does is tries to teach you how to meet life on life's terms on a daily basis, and it sounds like all of you here have gone through this program and kind of have that now. Do y'all just kind of want to talk about maybe a little bit about what your life is now, like compared to what it used to be, like in meeting daily challenges after working the program?
Sure. Go around the horn again?
Yeah, we'll just do a circle.
Just keep going around.
Round and around.
We learn how to count, firstly. We know how to go 1, 2, 3.
And I just learned the term going around the horn.
I don't even know that one.
Oh, maybe that's that's from the north, y'all. That came from the north.
That's right, you said y'all.
Yeah, what is so life now, for my story, like, materially looks very similar. I have the same job, the same house, the same car, I paid my bills before, I still pay my bills now. But life today has like a purpose. I believe in that I have something to contribute to society, to a community, to
be useful in a meaningful manner.
Yeah, I believe that I can be useful. I have to remind myself that that's a goal and an intention that I have to set every day, to be helpful and useful and not slip into despair or self-pity or other defects that I also have. But I never felt a connection to the world around me before. I always felt in conflict with it. I always, like you were saying, like, not only did I never take direction, I didn't want direction. I didn't want to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be the way everyone was living. I just thought I just always wanted to take the other road. And so for years, people thought that was brave or like courageous because I'd end up on these crazy adventures. But it was really just a way to like not get into life, it was a way to just stay on the periphery. Out of fear of like, what is this life going to look like? What if I'm no good at it? What if it doesn't come out the same way as everybody else's? What if it looks different? So it was like a control mechanism. But today I feel comfortable in my own skin. I can walk into a room. Like even tonight, like driving over here, I was like, what is this feeling I'm having? And I'm like, oh, I'm nervous. Like, I'm nervous about speaking, just because I don't know what's going to come out. We never know. We know it's kind of a joke in the program. It's like, you just don't really know what's going to flow from you when you come into one of our meeting spaces. But I also at the same time said a prayer of just like, thy will be done. I'm here to be an instrument for somebody. Hopefully it connects to a person who needed to hear something I had to say tonight, even if it's just one of you guys. I don't know who's out there, and maybe it's me. I don't know. Maybe I'll hear something I didn't know I was going to say. And but yeah, so that's what for me. I'm comfortable in my own skin again, like for the first time in my whole life. I'm right-sized at work. I feel very happy there. I never felt that before. Nothing changed. I have the same title. With the same responsibilities, the same scope of influence.
Well, that's a really interesting point because a lot of people, when they hit their bottoms, have lost their jobs or for whatever reason. But you stayed in the same place, and you were not happy, say, at that job at that time, right?
I've never been happy at any job. I have quit every job I've ever had and made big jumps. I'll just be like working hard on one thing, and then I'll jump and I'll be in a totally different career path almost, or a totally different state, or totally different, just constantly trying to run away from myself. And this time to just turn into it and be like, look, I'm here. Like, no one else needs to change but me. I'm the one who needed to change. And my way of interpreting other people's behaviors or actions was messed up. It was delusional. I think people were out to get me at work, or they were plotting against me, or if this would happen, then I'd be in trouble, or, you know, just like delusions. I just had these ideas about what other people were up to that weren't true. And now I just get to do my work and be good at it and feel prideful about it and hang it up.
That's a real good testament. Like,
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I can actually enjoy my job now. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It's
so
amazing.
that's what it looks like right now for me.
That
And
we're
I'm excited about what's to come. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah, we don't
The
know.
future's
Yeah.
unwritten, and I'm not worried about it. You know, that's a new feeling too.
Yeah.
To just know that whatever happens, I'll be okay.
Not to live in the past and plan the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Planning the future can be a dangerous thing because the future will never live up to the way a person
Absolutely.
plans it, right?
Yeah, true.
You feel like you've lost that fear, number
Yeah,
two?
definitely of the future. Well, that's one of the gifts that this process and this program has given me, is the ability to stay, or to try hard every day to stay in the present, you know, and a peace on the chaotic things of life, a more self-awareness, going through the steps. I learned who I was and who I am. I'm still learning, and so those are some of the greatest gifts that I have, and just like the fears are not how they used to be, you know. Of course, I still got a fear of heights, but I'm talking about
Yeah, ditto.
That can be a total valid, fear, you know,
Right,
getting
right.
up on a ladder or something,
Right.
or standing on the edge of the building, you know. That's a good fear to have.
Yeah. So, but other than that, you know, and just the opportunity to be better every day is one of the things that I've gotten along, you know, during my journey. A relationship with my mother has been restored, and the promise of so many more things, like number one said, to come. You know, it's a whole new design, a new way of living for me. It's not easy. One of our home group members always say, this is not for chumps, and that's true. You know, it's not a beautiful sunny day every day, but I think somebody said one time, my worst day in recovery is better than my best day before I got in recovery, and I just wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't dwell on that. I can sleep normally. I think I touched on how I needed, how big of a part alcohol played in me being able to sleep like a human being. Now I can actually go to bed, and that's a gift. You know, there's a lot of talk about miracles. You know, I've been given the gift to appreciate the smaller miracles in life. It doesn't have to be, the Red Sea doesn't have to be parted in front of me. It can just, like I said, the ability to go to sleep at night, to be at home by myself and not have to have chaos and the police and the adrenaline and everything, and then need alcohol to calm it down. You know, it's insane.
Yeah.
You know, my sanity has been put back in my head to a degree, and a different strengths too, like learning and understanding who I am, and not letting who somebody else thinks I am affect me. It doesn't.
Right.
You know, I keep my own power, right, in this program, and none of that was possible with the way I was living. and this process, this new design for life, has given me some of those gifts and strengths, and I'm anxious and looking forward to also, like number one said, to what the future holds. It don't have to be. I always wanted everything right now, today too, and that's been taken away. I can wait. I can wait in peace, you know, and I'm grateful for that.
That's great. It sounds like your expectations of the world have adjusted. Number three, do you feel that way? Do you feel like your expectations and belief system about the world have completely changed from the way it used to be?
Absolutely. My life used to be just filled with problems. And a lot of people say, and I 100% agree and say it myself, that I don't have problems anymore. I have challenges that come up, things that happen in life, but I see a problem as something that I have done that I then need to fix. I am no longer messing things up because I'm making really, really poor choices. I still make mistakes, but I'm no longer doing these disastrous things that all of a sudden I have to figure out how to solve. And now when I do make mistakes, I take ownership for it, and I say, you know, I try to correct it, But I think number one said something about being at work and, worried about being in trouble or people out to get you or just getting in trouble, really. And I used to live in so much fear of that. And now I know that if I mess something up and I do my best to take ownership for it, if I get in trouble, then I get in trouble, but I've done the best I can. And so I'm not ruled with that constant fear and shame that I always was ruled with. And I could never live in the present before. I was always living in the past, reliving that fear and that shame and worried about the future. Like before, I couldn't sit here and actually listen to the other people's stories. I would be sitting here thinking about what I was going to say or the 12 things that I had to do when I left here. Like I never was able to sit where I was and be present and enjoy it and participate, be an active member of where I presently was. And now I can do that. Today was a really busy day, but every different place that I went today, I enjoyed it. I got something out of it, and I was there, both physically and mentally. I wasn't, 3 steps ahead, worried about the more important thing that I had to do today. And so I find that if we're looking, we can find joy and peace in everything we do. And I never found any joy. I never had any peace. It was just constant chaos. I talk about the fireball in my belly. I used to always have this fireball in my belly, and I never knew why it was there.
Not just butterflies. The butterflies were doused in gasoline.
They were doused in gasoline, and they were going crazy. And I never knew why they were there, but the only thing that would calm them was alcohol. And I could calm them with alcohol. And I don't have that fireball anymore. Every once in a while I'll start to get it, but I know why it's starting to come, because I either haven't made a phone call that I really don't want to make, or I haven't done something that I'm really trying to put off. And so as soon as I do that thing, then that fireball goes away. And so now I know when it's there. And if it's starting to come, then it's because I'm doing something. So it's not a permanent home there anymore.
I feel calmer already. Thanks. Everybody.
Yeah, I want to just add one more thing to
it.
that, the concept of this work and just relationship thing that I think I missed, but it's so obvious, is that my motives are purer now. I have like integrity in my actions. Where one of the reasons I would always think I was gonna get in trouble is because I wasn't behaving kindly towards others at work. I was abusing time. I was abusing privileges at work that were things I should have gotten in trouble for. So I don't live that way anymore by intention, right? Like, so it's not always like this ethereal like serenity that comes. It's also can be quite literal. It's like I'm not coming in late and lying to you about where I've been. I'm not leaving early and lying to you about where I need to go. I'm not sneaking around on work trips and spending money in ways that they wouldn't want me to if they knew what I was up to. So some of it's very literal too. Like I am actually living as a nicer person intentionally, and so I don't carry this like burden of being found out or getting caught. So some of it's, I wanted to just make it like it's not all like so untouchable. Like some of it's quite literal. Like we are just trying to live like better people. Yeah. Which is normal. That's what normal people like. Normal people won't do that without much.
Most normal people.
Yeah, a lot of normal people don't need a lot of coaxing to live that way, but I did, and it's another reason why I don't wake up with that. My fireball is because I didn't do anything terrible yesterday that I have to feel guilty about. I don't have any secrets that I'm trying to like keep people out of.
Well, I think that's a really good point to make, is that if you sort of live by spiritual principles or a set of principles with a moral compass, you can live in the present. You don't have to worry about the future, and you don't have to worry about what you did yesterday, because if you address things as they come at you and you do the next right thing, well then what do you gotta worry
it can
about?
Truly just be a mistake. It's not.
Yeah, if there's a mistake,
yeah.
Like number 3 said, well, I guess that'll just be something I have to fix.
It's just an honest mistake.
But you can't worry about every moment necessarily being a whole set of mistakes that like this tsunami tidal wave coming to get you, because otherwise you can't function, right?
Well, I still do make poor choices. Like all of my choices are not. Golden, but they're not very common, and they don't have the traumatic consequences that my previous choices had.
Yeah. Mine aren't as rooted in dishonesty
Yeah.
as they once were. Like
And I
they're
get a little
honest mistakes,
selfish.
not dishonest mistakes.
Yeah.
Where I was trying to get away with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking that, you know, a lot of people talk about stealing or something, you know, in their story or whatever, and I don't think a lot of people think about, you know, if you're using company time for your own purposes, that essentially in a way is stealing, you know, and it's a dishonest behavior that a lot
Yeah.
of people have. And you know, I think there's even normal people.
Well, and
out
I
there
was
that
going to
do
say that. I
that.
think as alcoholics, like I believe, and have been taught by my sponsor, I have to be more careful about that blurring of the lines than maybe a normal person does, because for me, that's a slip back to an old way of living and an old way of thinking, and I know exactly where that roadmap takes
Plays
me
into
back
the
to.
sort of the obsessive behavior of alcoholism.
I have burned out the luxury of being able to blur the lines that other people may be able to, like with impunity, have that way of life. For me, that won't work. I won't get those results if I live that way.
All right. Well, we're kind of getting here, almost 8:30.
Well, I'd like to throw in one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Another part of the serenity serenity gift that I've gotten is the anger has been taken away. You know, the rage and traffic and in life and dealing with people. I can't remember really. I don't think I've taken that back since I've been in recovery. I mean, when I used to carry guns everywhere I went. And
Good to know.
Used to.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, I'm in the process of getting my gun rights back, but my firearm is locked up in my safe right now, and I forget about it. You know, I don't get angry. That's another thing I keep. You know, I think somebody told me a while back that anger is not something that happens to you. It's something you do to yourself. So this serenity and having a connection with the God of my understanding, you know, nothing you say or do today is going to cause me to get angry to the point where that I used to get, right?
Yeah,
I don't have
yeah.
those feelings right there anymore, you know, and
I think there was a time where I was even addicted to that like rush you'd get from being angry.
Right,
I could find it in things that were totally unreasonable.
right,
Because I liked it. I liked that like rush, and then I liked being able to treat it.
right.
Chaos. We needed to live in chaos.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I would find, like, even after I was sober for a while and doing well, I would still try to hold on to things and bring that chaos back in my life because it was familiar. It's like, what is that saying? The devil that you know versus the devil that you don't know. Like, I knew how to exist in chaos. Every once in a while, I would feel a little weird in peace. Like I didn't know how to act in peace, and now I love it. But at first, I would bring some of that chaos back because it was familiar and it was comfortable, and I knew how to exist in there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, it sounds like y'all all found new shoes to wear, though, which is fantastic. So yeah, I guess just to close out, we'll just do another round, and you know, maybe think about one thing that you would want to say to somebody that might be listening to this, you know, and may or may not think. I know this sounds like a hard question. It's not really a question.
No.
It's just, this is just, you know, what you might want to say to somebody out there that might be considering whether or not, you know, they are an alcoholic, or maybe should even reach out to someone in AA, because I know that there's a lot of people there's a lot of myths out there about AA, you know, that people would worry about. So just something that you would maybe suggest to somebody that might be thinking about reaching out for help.
Well, if you find that you can't stop and function without alcohol, and then if you find out that you can't function with it, then I think you might want to reach out to somebody and see if they can help you with that situation.
Right.
Want to go? Or you want me to
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Number 2 butted in, but that's all
Yeah, I
right.
did.
No, I'm glad you did. It
He
gave me.
doesn't know how the horn works.
It gave me time.
I still don't know what this horn thing is.
It's a horn. It gave me time.
Okay.
Yeah, that for sure. And then also, I guess for me, I would just say, give it a chance. Like, you may find, if you find your way into AA, which hopefully, if you're listening to this, you've experimented in the AA scene in some capacity to find this, I guess. Whether it's just a Google search. I did a lot of Googling in the beginning. I took a lot of online quizzes over the last 15 years before stopping to drink. And I always got stuck on 1 or 2 questions that I was in the negative. I didn't answer affirmative. And so I was like, I'm fine. I'm an 8 out of 10. It's not a problem. And then I went to, it took me 4 or 5 separate different churches, meetings or meeting places before I found one that I really felt connected to. So don't judge it by one experience. If you don't hit that home run right away, keep trying till you find one that jives for you. Because if you're not an alcoholic, it won't hurt you to go to a couple meetings and just get a better understanding of the program. And if you are an alcoholic, not giving it that chance might kill you. And so it's worth trying a couple different spaces if you're not hitting a home run at the first one you go to.
I would say I heard something that I found very profound today, and it probably is one of those common sense things that all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb moment, and I'm like, wow. But I heard today that change is not painful. Resistance to change is what is so painful.
Cool.
And we always talk about how change is painful, but change really isn't. It's when we're fighting against the need to change. You know, when we're sitting out there and we know that we need to do something, but we're fighting it. You know, when we come in here and somebody says, we suggest that you do this, and you fight it tooth and nail, and you come up with every excuse not to go through with it, that is what's painful. The change itself feels good. But the resistance, and when you fight that change, I think is what is really, that's where the pain is.
Yeah.
So.
Relinquish that self-will.
Yeah, and
sometimes the self-will
it's
can
more
be,
suffering if you don't. Yeah,
more destructive than just relinquishing and letting go. And like I say, ask for that help. Accept the help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people are resistant to that. Well, all right. Thanks everybody for sharing. Hopefully, some people have heard some good stuff out there and are going to get some help. That being said, again, this is the Into Action group based out of Richmond, Virginia here, and they meet every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m., 5400 Forest Hill Avenue. There's also a website, aaintoactiongroup.com, or just call them, 804-651-3499, or just come to a meeting. They'll be more than happy to have you. And with that, we will go out and see you next month. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching Eye on AA live show with the Into Action Home Group of Richmond, Virginia. Please join us next time for more on alcoholism and